Hey guys, the new FAQ and errata are out, including the match play guide, and we now have a better idea of how Games Workshop would like us to play Warhammer. So, in the past, you've heard us talk a lot about comp and trying to make the game real more likely to realize what people who play the game expect it to be, both visually and in terms of playing out as a game itself. So I thought I'd take a look. Paddy had some success getting into the Wood Elves and how they're improved. The Wood Elves are a controversial army, I believe, in the new old world, where a lot of competitive players don't think they're very good. But your average player, as we've come to realize, can't stand playing against Wood Elves. And I had a game on the weekend against a good Wood Elf player, and I feel like there's more to the roster than maybe the theory hammerists believe, but I can sympathize a little bit. The Arcane Journal wasn't that great. I didn't think the High Elf Arcane Journal was that great either. However, High Elves sort of occupied a better place in the metagame, pretty much down to dragons, but at the same time, they have sort of stuck around, and High Elves don't seem to attract the same sort of negative attention. They aren't well liked across the board, but you seem to get away with a little bit more than the Wood Elf player, even though their play styles in the old world, I believe, are very similar. So that's where I wanted to start this sort of hot take video. I've had about a week now to digest the changes, and I think they're great. In the main, I do want to make the point that I'm going to be talking about the errata in light of the match play guide, that this is a competitive review. The FAQ and errata and the match play guide have reinvigorated my interest in the competitive game. So when I sat down and looked at my armies, I'll probably go through them one by one, but High Elves were the one that I was most interested in. I think I'm always pulled back to playing them. And I think the errata and FAQ and match play guide sneakily might improve them, even though on the surface that doesn't look like it does. So I wanted to look at the five with an asterisk units, because I have six images, I'll get to that in a second, that the recent changes improve. So I want to just take stock to say that in the metagame, we're looking at High Elves, pretty much Star Dragon is by far the reason why they are effective on the tabletop. And your competitive builds basically broke down to your general on a Star Dragon with his leadership 10, 2+ armor save, and multiple other saves, being able to run around, restrain and reform, and essentially do whatever he wanted on the tabletop. That was my experience anyway. Beneath that, Sisters of Avalon were pretty much the consensus second best pick, and you could either play them in the rare slots underneath that Prince on a Dragon, or you could play them as a block in their own with core, which tended to have two level fours or some such associated with them to move them around with conveyance spells and to make them ethereal with Walk Between Worlds. I'm not sure that is viable anymore, that list, based on the changes where Magic is going to be less consistent. And on top of that, I don't think that there's some small changes that might hurt them a little bit too, just with shooting at large targets. Otherwise, just the way that they work, I don't know if they're going to be as relevant with the unit strength 10. I found it very difficult. The army I like to play, I found it very difficult to play them in a recent tournament where you needed standard bearers and to take objectives. I'm not sure that they work in that context. And underneath that, they're now sort of capped at leadership 8. You can't take the noble, give him pure of heart, make him the battle standard bearer to avoid being the general. So the jury's out. The sisters are still really powerful, but underneath that, I think really where we're sitting is either Prince on Dragon led armies, and the core there is interesting, and we can talk about that soon, or sisters in core armies, which may have taken a pretty much sort of fatal hit with these new changes. Before we keep going, always want to shout out the subscribers to our channel. Thank you to those paid subscribers who keep the ship sailing forward. On top of that, you can always pay us a tip with super thanks if you derive any value from this video. We have our own Discord, which has got the links below. And on top of that, even just commenting or replying can help us to shape future content. So we appreciate any of your support. Thanks. All right. On to the units. So I think the Star Dragon is a sneaky winner of the new changes. I think firstly, you can get what makes the Star Dragon good is the stacking of the saves. So you're not going to be able to get the 2+ save anymore, but you have multiple ways to get ward saves, and you have Seed of Rebirth still. So you're still going to get a 3+ save pretty easily. Full plate armor and shield costs you about 8 points, it seems, to give you a 3+ save on your 9 wounds, toughness 6 creature. I wish they'd had a look at that, but I guess we'll wait for version 2 to see if that gets addressed. The image to the right is the best image I can find of Seed of Rebirth, but Seed of Rebirth and Star Dragon seem to get big better because the Seed of Rebirth, the regen rules are a little bit up in the air, but regeneration seems to have gotten a bit better. So that in terms of whenever you take a wound, you're going to be able to use it. So I don't know whether that means you get Vile Tided and you're not allowed to regenerate from or let's say what's something where you can regenerate. There's magic, the Lizardman magic item, the sword that can do it. Let's say there's something that denies regeneration saves. Once you then lose the wound, it seems like you're allowed to apply the regeneration save afterwards. Seems very clunky. People can argue about intent all they want, but the wording at the moment seems to imply that you can use it for something like dangerous terrain tests or the like. So Seed of Rebirth got a lot better for 20 points under those rules, but also it was already really good. And the reality for the Star Dragon, which what I think makes it so great, is that you can still stack those saves and end up under 500 points. That's where your Chaos Dragon and other sort of sorcerers on big mounts are going to struggle in this new format. So you've got open war, you've got the points cap, which is essentially the old Throne of Skulls, where you can only take one level 4 and or a level 3, it seems, and no character can be over 500 points. I think that's likely to just be adopted. And then you've got the combined arms approach to list building. I think the Star Dragon's going to still be good. I think on top of that, it's the function that it has in the High Elf army. So in the past, like you could send a Chaos Dragon, Chaos Lord into infantry, or just mince them. I think that wasn't really the role of the Star Dragon. I think the Star Dragon can go around and pick off all of the more difficult things in to deal with, like say an Iron Demon or something like that. Because the reality is that your high elves don't, it's the only way you're going to get strength over strength 5, unless you're taking bolt throwers, which are really vulnerable, really fragile. So getting strength 7 sometimes with multiple, like very consistent stomp attacks, high weapon skill attacks. I think the Star Dragon is still really good. I would expect it still to be the mainstay of high elf armies. And on top of that, I think what subtly these changes have done with the match play pack is sort of doubled down on 50% characters. I think most of the comp had moved away to 25%, 33%, some restrictions on the overall amount of characters you could take. Instead, they've sort of elevated the value of core units, which is not a bad take. But I think it'll mean that those dragons are here to stay and that you can afford the prince with his level 10 to reform after winning combats, which is, I think, one of the most powerful tactics in the game. So I think the Star Dragon is a winner under the new errata, even though it can't watch out for challenges and things like that. Also, what surprisingly in this, the dilution of magic has meant that the high elf mages actually, I think, are big winners. So there's a number of reasons for this. The main thing is Lilith's Blessing. With the reduction of the reliability of spells across the board, you're seeing a lot of the armies that could just automatically cast things look and think, oh, now I've got to roll a 7 or an 8. High elves are going to have to do that as well because a lot of their, especially if you're going to play high magic, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you're looking at elementalism, not very expensive. Battle magic, although weakened, not as expensive. Illusion, probably expensive still. Let's say illusion and high magic, they with their 10+ casting costs, the ability to reroll once a turn is going to be a big deal. If you've ever played with something like the Falconhorn on a veteran unit, RIP Falconhorn, the reroll really dramatically increases your odds. Like from the point of say rerolling on 8 and under, maybe you need like 72%, it goes to 97%. It's massive. So with the high elf mages, if you've got that level 3, now it's cheaper, but it dispels at the same rate, but it's casting at +2. If it's trying to roll an 8 with a reroll, you've got a pretty good chance of getting that across. There's not a lot of ways to get +1 to cast. I think pretty much Wand of Jet is all you've got in the High Elf army, unfortunately, and that's going to be in competition with Lore Familiar and other arcane items. But I think that reroll is going to be a big deal. I think the second step to this, which is probably not been discussed as much as I thought it might, was that Drain Magic has gone from F tier to like a C/B type spell. The reality here is that Drain Magic on a 9, so it's not that difficult to cast. You'll be casting on a 7. There are some armies that are just going to get trashed by it. At raising the casting cost of things by 2 is a lot if people start to run lots of smaller wizards, or even just raising by 2 is going to take away pretty much that whole advantage of the ability of sorcerers who are level 3 or 4 with their +2s to cast. So Drain Magic as its signature has really like jumped dramatically in stock, and that's also because even though it remains in play, to dispel it, you're going to have to dispel it on a 10, and that's going to be a lot harder to do straight up. So that wizard, you've got to stay within 24. They're going to have to roll a flat 8+2 or 9+1 to get it out of the game. And I think that, that's given that you can cast it as a hex before you do anything else. I think it means that you're looking at high elf mages who are probably predominantly now going to be in units more. That drain magic, you can cast it and then march afterwards is going to be a big deal. So I think Lilith's Blessing, Drain Magic, I think the drop to a level 3 is quite good. I felt like I was ended up preferring that Star Dragon plus Mage approach as a dispeller in firstly and foremostly, instead of multiple level 4s. So I feel like these high mages at the level 3 level are going to be great. Whether or not the level 1s are any good, I guess you're going after signature spells there, like Glittering Robe is great. You already have access to Ring of Fury with Hammerhand in as an extremely common magic item. So on the main, I think you're going to see these mages in a support role, and the reduction in cost to play them is pretty good. Not as good as High Elves have had it with level 4s, but probably better compared to the steep drop off some other armies are going to experience. So onto the units, I think it's probably a no-brainer for a lot of people to take a second look at Dragon Princes, but I think there's a bit of nuance here. Of course, Impetuous, you've heard me say and other people that it pretty much makes a unit unplayable due to the randomness. I believe that Dragon Princes you got to be careful with. There's a couple of things going on. I think there's a misassignment of role with Dragon Princes, and they hit like a truck. They've got 1,000 special abilities. Well, maybe not like a truck. They only hit strength 5. So you've really got to break the unit that you're attacking with. And so that means that there are things like Cloak of Beards is good in this unit, War Banner. You're just trying to build res and try to make sure that your opponent at the very minimum falls back in good order so you can continue to use Lancers. The other side of this is that I think that means that going into infantry is not a great bet. Cavalry, people are sort of doing the maths, probably not that great going into infantry. First charge is going to be necessary, but you can be waylaid by chaff, and it's not as easy to get off. But toughness 3, it's just a killer. Even with a 2+ save, there's a lot of AP going around. You can, with that 2+, 6+ ward, you really can fail a few if you're at -2 AP, couple of 3 down dice rolls, and your unit is cut in half. So I think really if you're playing Dragon Princes, there's two things I'd be cautious about. Firstly, the best bet for Dragon Princes is against other single wound targets. Really, that the best result is to countercharge or charge another heavy cavalry unit, where your lancers make a big deal and your elven reflexes kick in, and you're usually at initiative 9 striking first, and as most other heavy cavalry is coming in at initiative 8 or initiative 7. You're probably up against other elven cavalry at initiative 9. So really, they're not there as heavy hitter hammers. They are, but you really got to pick your right unit. You can't just throw them into infantry or other units that they'll get bogged down against. On top of that, you need to think about whether they like what this has done is reinforce what the new match play book has done has reinforced that it's 50% characters, 25% core, 25% rare. And that's sort of how people build armies. Units that are in special just aren't that great. So if they don't have rare like abilities like Pegasus Knights, or they can't be taken in core with some sort of character that enables that like handmaiden of the Everqueen, then you're sort of ch stuck choosing between them and rare. And I'm just not sure that the Dragon Princes do a lot more than what the default rare seems to have been for Hales for a while, which has been Sisters of Avalon and even maybe Lothran Skycutters, who for a lot less points do have a sort of more almost more resilience because of their maneuverability and just they seem to be able to get away or ride the flanks a lot more easily. Dragon Princes, when you take them, are too expensive in the sense that you sort of need them to do work. So it's great that Impetuous is gone. I think what you see is that if you're taking Sisters of Avalon in core, Dragon Princes are a great choice there to back them up. I do think pound for pound, they are the fourth best unit in the book. It's just they occupy a strange part of the list building once you pick Star Dragon, Mage, and you decide where if you're going to take Sisters or where you're going to put them at all. So the next unit I want to look at is that White Lions. Maybe Games Workshop is trying to sell a lot more of them. I'm not sure, but they've been given Furious Charge. This is a really interesting change. I don't think Phoenix Guard or Swordmasters have gotten any better at all. I'm going to play Phoenix Guard tonight. We'll see how they go. But even with the new rules for infantry, I'm not sure if they are tough enough still for the amount of points they cost. But White Lions, especially with the Army of Infamy, could be onto something. They've got their ability to roll an extra attack puts them in an interesting place because where people had sort of arrived with White Lions is as some sort of like chaff flanking small unit that can move through cover and then hit its strength 6 at initiative 5 on the charge. So that's not very easy to pull off for starters, but I suppose now Furious Charge makes that better for one thing. The second side of this is if you do rank them up in a unit now, you can perform those shenanigans with a large fighting rank and then the supporting rank. And so you're going to get those strength 6 hits through. They are still toughness 3 in combat, heavy armor. You feel like they're just going to get torn apart regardless. And trying to get a movement 5 unit to be able to charge is not necessarily easy. So you're not going to get the attacks there. But then underneath that, the supporting attacks are not going to come through unless you have been charged. And so you've got to, you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think it's interesting what they've done with White Lions. I'd love to see these elves, the elf infantry hit the table more, but I think what stops them is more a function of how the game works and how lists are created, and that there's more powerful units that you can play rather than they are inherently bad in themselves. I think maybe they could be a bit cheaper, but that doesn't look like something that's going to happen for a long time. So I expect White Lions probably to still run around in those 5 to 7 units through the trees. Maybe, for where you need, maybe you take 10 now so they can take um, objectives and that's how they may function. I'd be interested to see if people can make them work, but they've certainly haven't gotten any worse. And hopefully people are putting them on the table more with this new edition. Underneath that, I guess we should talk about infantry and core infantry in general. I'm not sure whether the white lines being special can't take objectives and they have to be scoring units from core. But looking at the high elf core, they've been derided for a long time. At this point, people would take a combination of Reavers and maybe Silver Helms or Archer Darts who can volley fire in a single column. High elf Spearmen were completely useless, and Loth and Seaguard were sort of played intermittently, but were the fourth out of the tier of 5 in terms of choices from core. I think you'll see Loth and Seaguard are going to come back. I think the reality is you need that flexibility. While a unit of 20 probably costs you about 100 points or so more than the same of Spearmen, when you're taking into account something like Razor Banner or magic items, of course, you're giving them shields. I think the truth is when you build a high elf army, everything's just really expensive. So it's not so much that I think spearmen are not going to be terrible if you could take them in large numbers, but 30 is going to cost you 300 points. And I don't know if it's going to get you any far. Remember that people are going to be starting to take things like template attacks, uh, 5-inch templates, 3-inch templates, flame templates have all gotten a lot better if there are more ranks. And without ward saves, I don't know if that 5 plus up toughness 3 is going to cut. I've seen like 3/4 of a unit die in a shooting phase just because the dice rolling is so bad against you. I think you'll see Seaguard come through because of the flexibility. Whether or not they are better than Silverhelms remains to be seen. I don't know why Silverhelms didn't get countercharge if Chaos Core Knights are getting countercharge, but you're looking at probably a block of either of those to score, and maybe Illyrian Reavers who have no armor save at all. I think the flexibility with the mage, you can take the Sea Guard Elven Honor for free, whack it in the unit. It can maybe give them ethereal, maybe it gets a warbow, it's got naval discipline, it can continue to move forward with the unit. I think you'll probably start to see that become the default. That's certainly what I'm going to try first. I'm going to try them and Silver Helms. We'll see how we go. But I think the new scoring rules are going to be very interesting for people as they try to like get unit strength 10 or more in core, and that's not always very easy to do. We've gotten used to playing all the other types of units like the chaff, the mobile stuff out of core, and that's going to change probably. So that's the sort of more advanced way I'm thinking about how these units work in the new regime, I suppose. I'm looking forward to a game I'm playing tonight, and I'll be playing a Star Dragon, I'll be playing Drain Magic, I'll be playing Dragon Princes. I don't have any white lines at the moment, so I'm playing Phoenix Guard. We'll see how they go, and I'm playing the Sea Guard and a Silverhelm block. So who knows? I'm up against Null. The game might be over in 45 minutes, but we'll see, and be reporting back here over the next few weeks as we sort of look at how these big changes to the old world, which are generating a lot of excitement, are going to hopefully broaden the meta game and bring more armies and units back into the game.